Step number one, if you want to catch catfish in a very small river, you're gonna need bait. Whew, got us a 3-pounder. That's not bait though. Yay, we caught some bait. A little small bluegill like this work great, as long as they stay in the boat. Oh, I don't know what that is, but it's big. Oh, look at that. Oh, he came on, he broke my line. Dang it.
Send it. Before we jump into the fun part and actually go fishing, let's learn a thing or three about fishing on small rivers. The river we're going to be fishing at today is called the Yellow River. It's in central Georgia, and it is one of the 3 rivers that feeds into Jackson Lake. I personally have always loved fishing small rivers. Feel like the fish are a lot less pressured. Don't see as many people fishing this far up the river. It's a lot more private and quiet. And most importantly, I've caught some of my biggest fish in small rivers. Now, way back in the day, which was a Tuesday, I was a kayak bass fisherman. And I caught quite a few big fish in this little stretch of river that we're going to be talking about today. Now, that was a long time ago before I converted religions, and now I only do catfishing. Everything else is just bait. Now, the key to finding catfish in these small river systems like this is you have to remember catfish, and not just catfish, all fish, like something different. You're usually not going to find catfish, or any fish for that matter, in these long straight sections of the river. In a small river like this, during most of the season, these long straightaways are only a couple of feet deep at most, but they don't offer anything to really hold the fish. What the fish are looking for is structure or transitions. And in a small river system like this, where you're going to find the most structure and transitions where these fish are going to hold is going to be bends in the river. When we refer to river bends, we're talking about the places where the river makes a turn. One direction or the other, it does not matter. It's just called a bend. Now, each bend or turn in the river has 2 different sides. You've got an inside and then you've got an outside. Generally, the inside of the bend is going to be the shallower section, or is not going to have as much transition as the outside of the bend. Now, that's not always 100% true, but in general, the insides are going to be shallow and the outsides are going to have holes or deeper spots where the river current has washed them out. Then you also need to look at the direction the current is flowing. The direction that the current is flowing from is usually what we refer to as upriver or up current. And where the water current is flowing to is usually referred to as down current or downriver. Now, the section of this river that we're going to be focusing on today is kind of small, but it has a lot of good features. We have one really good sharp bend up here at the top, and then we have a set of switchbacks, of what I like to call switchbacks, right below it. I consider a sharp bend anything around that 90-degree mark, and anything that looks like an S is what we call a switchback. A spot we're going to focus on in particular today is in this sharp bend. Let's take a closer look at all the features of this bend so I can explain to you exactly why I picked this spot. So most all rivers are going to have what's called a main channel. That's going to be the deepest part in the river. Now, it's not always in the middle. And in these bends, generally the channel is going to ride the outside edge. And when it does that, it is going to create some shallow spots, and it's going to create some much deeper spots. It's going to create holes and ledges, and depending on the way the water flows, how much current you have, they're going to look a little different in each river bend. Our channel runs anywhere between 10 and 15 foot deep all the way through this bend. And up here at the top of the screen where it actually comes into the bend, it's kind of in the center, but not all the way. And then as it goes into that 90-degree corner, you can see that the channel actually goes further and further to the outside. It doesn't go all the way to the outside, and I'll show you why here in just a little bit, but it hugs that outside a lot closer than it does to the middle. And then as it comes around and goes down towards the bottom of your screen, it moves more to the inside. And what that does is creates a sand flat at the beginning of the bend. So on the upriver side of the bend, you've got this long stretch that's just sand and a little bit of mud, but there's no structure on it. This is what it looks like on a 2D sonar and a down scan, where you're coming up out of the channel onto that little sand flat, and there's nothing there. You don't see any sticks, any stumps, any ledges, drop-offs, nothing. It's just barren sand. There's nothing there, and you're not going to find a lot of fish in this general area. But this is what happens when the channel moves to the outside of the bend. You will generally, at the beginning of the bend, on the upriver side of the bend, have a small flat area that's usually pretty featureless. Now, in our scenario on this river bend, the reason that we don't see the main channel follow all the way over to the outside of that bend is because we have two pieces of structure that are preventing it from doing that. We have a tree that is down into the water, it is submerged. And then right behind that, we have a big washed out hole that goes down from about 17 to 18 foot. And that is because that tree is in the way of the river channel. It's actually going around that tree, and the current is flowing behind the tree and going down into that big hole. And then coming back up out of the hole, it now creates a small flat back behind that hole that's right in the middle of that river bend on the outside edge. And that little flat in this particular river is mostly just muddy bottom. Not a whole lot of structure there, but it is a flat where fish can get up and feed, and then they can dip back off into that deep water either in the river channel, or they can go down into that little 17, 18-foot hole that's right ahead of it. Here's what it looks like on a very shaky cameraman looking at it on 2D sonar and on downscan. I was trying to drive and film this at the same time, so I apologize for the camera being all over the place. But you see, as we come off of that flat down into the river channel, it drops off very, very quickly, and then you start to see that submerged tree. And what I'm looking at in that submerged tree, and as we transition from that hole behind the tree up to the mud flat, is where I'm seeing fish at. And in this particular scenario, I'm seeing more of them on that transition going from the hole up to that mud flat than I did actually inside the tree or on the flat itself. So that gives me an idea that fish are on that transition. They're on that drop off or that ledge, whatever you want to call it. And this is a spot I want to focus on fishing. Now, the reason this little 6 to 8 foot mud flat ends is because, as you can see on the satellite image, it's not very clear, but there is two very large trees floating up on the surface. They're actually laying over on the bank into the water. Now, because they're not submerged, the river current is pushing water underneath those trees and creating yet another washout area. Now, this one's not as deep as the first washout that we look at. It's only about 12 to 14 foot, but it does create a very steep and quick transition from that 6 to 8 foot mud flat down into that 12 to 14 foot hole. Now, looking at it on 2D and downscan coming off of that mud flat into that hole, what do we see? There again, we have fish on the transition. There's fish are holding on that drop off in the lower depths of that drop off. They're not in the mud flat. They're not in the trees. They're actually on the lower end of that drop off. So just like the first depth transition that we saw behind the first tree, I now know that I need to focus on fishing this drop off as well. After we come out of that hole, we're going to go across the river channel back over to the inside of the bend. This is going to be on the downriver side of the inside of the bend. And this is the area that you saw me fishing at the beginning of the video where I was actually trying to catch bait at. What this is a small sandy flat, but because the river channel transitions over to that side and the water moves out toward that inside of the bend, it has created a washout underneath all these overhanging trees. So you got tons of tree growth coming off of the bank, and it's going up and over into the river area. Some of it's touching the water, some of it's just above the water, some of it's actually down in the water a few feet. And that has forced the river current to go up underneath those trees and start eroding away the inside of that bend, creating a little protective pocket that fish and bait can go up underneath those trees and find some shelter. This is not only a great place to find fish, but this is where we're going to find our bait.
Ooh, we catching. We catching bait. There we go. We catching. We catching. Go join your friend down there on death row. Ooh, yeah, got another one. We catching. We catching. Perfect size too. Perfect size. And I'm gonna get to keep my worm. Look at there. Oh, oh, I don't know what that is, but it's big. It is pulling too. It's probably gonna be a bass or something. Ain't no telling in here. Oh, come on. I got to drag as tight on this Zebco 33 as this gonna go. Still pulling. What do we got? What do we have? What is it? Come on. Oh, it's a freaking catfish. Oh, look at that. Oh, he came on me lied. Dang it. That was a blue cat too. So the best way to catch catfish in a river is to catch the bait and hope you catch a catfish while you're catching bait. Whew-wee, that was all that little zip code 33 had in it. Thing was screaming. Yeah, that's where the catfish like to be, is where the bait's at. But that was like as soon as it hit the water, and it took off. Get one more bait fish before we get out of here and go start actually catfishing before it gets like super dark. Oh, there we go. Ah, something big. I caught more big fish catching for bait than I ever have catfishing. This is sad. All right, what we got this time? What do we have this time? You don't want to come up to the surface, whatever it is. Another catfish. Oh, this is funny. All right, we're gonna get out the grippers for this one. Come here, buddy. Quit pulling all my drag off. Come here. Come here. Quit all that spinning. Quit it. Quit it. Quit it. There we go. Look at there. We catching. Well, while I got this fish up here, might as well tell y'all what I'm doing. I think I've caught as much catfish as I have bait at this point. Will you quit it? I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to use you as bait, I promise. In the shallows tonight. Well, if you'll let go of my grippers, you can go home. There. Bye, Felicia. So hopefully it's not too dark and you'll actually be able to see this. I am using a very small circle hook. This is a number 8 size. It's just a little red cheap circle hook I got off of Amazon. I literally buy them in packs of like 200. I'm not using any weight. I am using a weighted bobber though. I got the smallest little bobber they sell at Walmart. This is 4-pound test Cajun red mono. I sell this at Academy, and we're doing all this on a little Zebco 33 micro combo. I want to say I bought this at Walmart years ago. This is an older one. I've had it for a long time. It still works great. And I've just got some regular old red wigglers, nothing fancy. I'm only using half of a red wiggler just because this hook is so small. And where we caught both of those catfish at, it's only about 10 foot deep. They were on the down current side of the bend, on the inside of the bend. Whoop, got another small one. For bait tonight, this is what we're going to be using. Very small bluegill, sunfish, shell crackers, whatever we can catch. I prefer these smaller ones because when you cut the head piece off, you don't have this gigantic bluegill head. You have a smaller head, a little bit smaller profile offering for some of these river fish. Now, I'm not saying there ain't some big fish in here because I've seen some big ones pulled out of here. But most of the time, what I'm catching is smaller fish. 10, 15, 20 pounds. Now, it's late summer here in Georgia. The temperature was about 88, 89 today. It's supposed to get down in the, I think, low 70s, high 60s tonight. I am definitely not staying out all night. I forgot my jacket, and I do not want to be frozen. And I am not catfishing at night out here because the bite is better at night. I am doing it purely out of because I have to. I had to work all day long, and I've got to go out of town this weekend. It's the only time I got to fish, so I'm going fishing. If it was up to me, I'd been out here during the daylight fishing this afternoon, but too much going on at work, couldn't get away. Getting us all baited up while we are covered in bugs. This first hour of darkness always just drives me insane. I was able to cut each one of those small bluegill up into 3 chunks. So I got a head and 2 body sections. I'm not fishing with real big pieces of bait tonight. I'm just doing little chunks about like that on a typical Santee Cooper rig. I got a 3-ounce dragon weight, 50-pound mono leader, 50-pound mono line, a Catfish Semo knotless float. I'm really liking these things. These are awesome, by the way. And we have a 6-aught circle hook.
Let's take a look at exactly where I have the boat positioned and where I'm going to put these baits at. The boat is right here, and this yellow star is. I'm up on that sandy flat that's only about a foot, maybe 2 foot deep. They gave me a great position to anchor, and I could cast all the way across to the other side of the river, where I have the very first bait on the right-hand side of the screen, just behind where that down tree is at that has that little washout hole. I've got the second bait in the middle of the screen. It's on the outside edge of where that tree is laying down in the water, going up to that little muddy flat that's about 6 to 8 foot deep. Bait this on the left-hand side of the screen. I've got it on that transition where it comes up out of the river channel and goes over to the inside of the bend where we have those overhanging trees. So I've got some in those deep transitions, and I've got some on that 8 to 10 foot range where we caught those fish earlier in the video while we were trying to catch bait.
Oh, there we go. That's a good takedown. All right. That did not take long, only about 5 minutes. He's coming right towards the boat. Woo, yeah, we catching. We catching. Man, nice fish. Bah, get out of my face, you stupid bugs. Not too shabby. Little 2 or 3 pound blue cat. He hit it like a freight train. He was hungry. I'm gonna let him go back. We ain't keeping none tonight. We just out having fun. See you later, buddy. Thanks for taking my bait. That one hit a body chunk, and he was just on the back side of where that lay down tree is. I'm just gonna take that and replace it with another body chunk and put it right back in the same spot. I used to actually catch a catfish when I'm actually trying to catfish instead of catching them when I'm trying to catch bait. All right, we got a little change of scenery. We have moved a grand total of 50 feet, and I have moved down to the back side, or the down current side of this same bend. And we're going to take this very back bait, we're going to put it out on this flat again, but further down. We're going to put this on that little transition area out towards that undercut in the bank. And then this very first rod, we're gonna put it a little bit further up where I saw some trash in the water earlier. Couldn't really tell what it was, but down there at the bottom of that transition where it dumped from like 6 into 17, 18 foot of water, there was some trash down on the bottom. I couldn't really tell what it was, but saw a couple fish around it, so I'm gonna put one over there. Only thing I've changed is my baits. I just got one new bluegill out, cut it up into 3 chunks. We'll give this a little bit, see what happens. Well, at least I remembered I had some insulated pants in here. I just don't have a hoodie, because I usually never forget it. But I did today. It's going to be a cold ride back. I wish I had a little bit more time tonight and some warm clothes, because I would definitely stay out longer.
Following afternoon, I was out filming a review video for this mud motor that's on the back of my boat. I had a couple hours after dark so that I could actually do some fishing. And I took this exact same principle that I used fishing on the small side of the river and applied it to the larger end of the river. This is a little bit further down, closer to the actual main lake, but it's still on the river. The only difference is I had to find the main river channel with my electronics, because you can't really see it because it's a lot bigger and wider in this part of the river. Once I found the river channel with my Humminbird graph, I was able to cruise around and look for a 90-degree bend in that river channel. And I found a really good one right here. And here's what that river channel looks like on the map. It flows down from the top of the screen down to the bottom, and there's a really hard 90-degree bend and then a little bit of an S-curve right back behind it. Almost the exact same setup as we had the night before when we were fishing on the smaller end of the river. Now, the way this river channel flows, it creates a big, huge, shallow mud flat. There's really no structure or anything on it off to the right-hand side of the screen. So I knew there was nothing over there really worth fishing for. Right here in this area circled in red, right in the middle of that 90-degree bend, there is a big, huge washed out hole from the way that the river current flows in that area. I'd say this area is probably about 50 or 60 yards wide, but it was a very steep transition from that shallow flat that was only about 7 or 8 foot on the very edge, and then it drops off very steep down into that hole that got up to about 20 foot deep. And again, I did the exact same thing. I looked at my graph on downscan and on 2D, and I saw fish were hanging out on that transition, on that drop off. So that is where I decided to fish for a little while. And I put baits on both sides of the drop off. I put a couple up next to the shallow flat right on the drop off. I put a couple right at the bottom of the drop off. And then I put a couple over on the bank side that were still in really deep water. It's about 17, 18 foot right there, but it was going up towards where there's a little boat dock, and going up towards that bank line, it was a very steep incline. It dropped from like 17 foot down at the bottom of that hole and then instantly went up to about 4 foot deep where there's some riprap over off to the right. Using the exact same setup and the same bait as the night before. This is actually using bluegill that I had cut from the previous night and had frozen overnight. I put my baits out in the water, and about 10 minutes later, this is what happened.
One over here on this rod. Yep, we got one. Oh, yeah. Come on. Oh, that feels like a decent fish. He feels decent. I say decent. He's probably 2-pounder. We catching. What do we got? I think we got a flathead. Yep, we do. Oh, he's an angry flathead too. All right, let me get you around all these rods over here, buddy. Yeah. Quit. Open that mouth. There we go. Go. Yeah. There we go. Got us a nice flathead. Nice Appaloosa cat. Huh, he's pretty. Ain't nothing huge. He's long though. He's long and skinny. Eight two. Yeah, nice little flathead. I haven't caught a flathead out here in a long time. All right, there you go, buddy. Take off. Thanks for playing. Well, hopefully that gives you a basic introduction into how to find spots to fish on a river, especially a small river like this one. Just got to get out there, find those bends, and try some different spots. Focus on the transitions and anywhere you see structure, especially up here in the shallows, and try some different baits too. I normally use bluegill when I'm out here, but chicken also works. I like regular plain chicken breast, and I usually spray them with some kind of fish attractant like Bang, or I just did a video not too long ago on Bang versus Thump Gel, and they both work very well. I'll leave a link to that video if you want to go check it out. But river fishing does not have to be complicated, and there's not a whole lot to it. I use this same concept on every single river that I go to, and I may not always catch huge numbers of fish, but haven't gotten skunked yet using this technique. So we will definitely be doing this again soon, but it's time for me to go get warm, and it's time for you to see the final thoughts. Ah, it's gonna be a real short video if I only catch trees and no bait. Bugs in my... I've caught every tree and every stump this Zebco can get to. It's on a freaking tree limb. Not even anything serious. Some bait company's making their money off of me today. Ugh, up my nose and up my mouth. Yep, that's rig number 3 we've lost in the f***ing trees. You know, a sensible human being after 4 or 5 times of getting hung in a tree would be like, okay, I think I'm done donating tackle to the tree gods. But me? No, I just buy everything in packs of 400. Not going well today. Not going well at all. If I eat one more bug, I'm gonna lose my damn mind.